Have you seen Chuck Norris lately? He's still kicking butt and staying active well into his 80s. What's even more shocking is he looks more jacked than ever and seems to have more energy than guys half his age. And it's all thanks to Morning Kick, a revolutionary new daily drink from Roundhouse Provisions that combines ultra-potent greens like spirulina and kale with probiotics, prebiotics, collagen, and even ashwagandha. Just mix with water, stir, and enjoy. Unlike other green drinks out there, this one tastes exactly like strawberry lemonade and has hundreds of 5-star reviews. Go to roundhouseprovisions.com/save44 for up to 44% off your regular priced order. Plus, every purchase is backed by a 90-day money-back guarantee. So if you want to experience smoother digestion, a boost of energy, and just an overall healthier body, then go to roundhouseprovisions.com/save44 today. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Results can vary.
Kids listeners, today I'm sharing everyone's favorite lunchtime indulgence, the double quarter pounder with cheese from McDonald's. It's the go-to that keeps you full and energized for the rest of the day. It's not just a meal, it's a whole experience. You know it's fresh when you feel that heat through the bag. For those of us who know burgers, the McDonald's drive-thru is all about the double QPC. When those burger cravings hit, nothing comes even close. Get a drip that's as far as your drip when you order a double quarter pounder with cheese at McDonald's. Fresh beef at participating U.S. McDonald's excludes Alaska, Hawaii, and U.S. territories.
Welcome everyone to Couch Potato Diary. Happy Friday. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Yesterday was all about the NBA. We're going to do the same thing with the NHL today. So part one here is going to be focusing on the Eastern Conference teams. Part two, those out in the Western Conference. And we're going to have a good time with it. So let's get right into it and start talking some hockey. We begin with the Boston Bruins. For the Bruins, they are a tricky team to kind of figure out because I don't like the contracts they handed out. I think Lindholm absolutely saved himself in this postseason, but I do think that we established that he's not a number one center. And so with that, I have some concerns about giving him, now $7 million isn't necessarily number one center money, but I lost a lot in what I thought of Elias Lindholm over this past campaign, and I don't know if a good little stint in the postseason is enough to get it back for me. With that being said, he is still an upgrade over what they have, right? Like he is the best center on this team, and it's by a bunch. So Daily Faceoff had it with Zaka, Lindholm, and Pasternak as their number one, and Marchand, Coyle, and Geekie as their second line. That is a good top six. That is a top six. That is a top six that is going to, I think, make quite a bit of noise in the Eastern Conference again this season, and one that I think is going to help this Boston Bruins team really put together some kind of a run here. And then you get to the Zadorov contract. And I despise this contract. It is too much money for far too long. You are absolutely 100% paying for the absolute upside of Nikita Zadorov. And the thing is, he has shown he has an incredible upside. The problem is, he can show his incredible upside in the same shift he shows his incredible downside. And so that's a problem to me. And that is not someone who I think I would be giving term to, or I would be giving large dollar amounts to. Like, he is a really, really good 5'6" defenseman. He is an... You have him as your forward, but then you're looking for another defenseman at the deadline, sort of a thing. Like, he can play a top two pairing role, but you don't want him to do it for that long, or in important games. And so again, to give him that kind of money concerns me. But then you look at how their defense stacks up, and again, it is Zadorov, McAvoy, Lindholm, Carlo, and then Lohrei and Peak, which is again. a good blue line and one that will help take you places. But again, I just feel like there's going to be a point when we get to the trade deadline where they are going to be looking for another defenseman. And so this is one of the tricky things, and has always been one of the tricky things of the salary cap era, is you went out and made your team better for this upcoming season. And for the Boston Bruins, that is all they give a darn about. But I think they are setting themselves up to be in absolute cap purgatory here very, very soon. Now, again, right now they don't care. They want to get back to competing for championships. But this is a team that I think maybe should have focused a little bit more on, you know what? Let's just be good for the next couple of seasons and see where we're at, instead of, well, we definitely need to know what Elias Lindholm looks like in his age 35 season. Same with Nikita Zadorov. I don't think long-term wise it is a wise move, and I think you could have got something, maybe not Lindholm, but something relatively similar without having to give out that kind of term or anything like that. The Buffalo Sabres have had a relatively quiet offseason until they get to the trade with the Edmonton Oilers, as they move on from Savoie to bring in McLeod. And this is a depth forward. We have seen that you can go very far in the playoffs with McLeod as a depth forward on your team, and so on and so forth. I think Savoie is a high-level prospect that a lot of people are actually quite excited about. And so to trade high-level prospect for depth, not good. Not what you want to be doing at all. And for Buffalo, like, I get that they've had a lot of high-end prospects, and it hasn't always worked out. And maybe I'm overvaluing Savoie here, but I don't get this at all from a Buffalo standpoint. They gave up an awful lot to bring in a nice depth piece. And I still feel like they are either a couple forwards being acquired away, or a couple forwards stepping up away from being able to take that next step. And it's just that could have been used as a piece to go get something else instead of McLeod. It felt like a wild overpay for a team that still isn't like one depth piece away from really making that kind of noise. So this is the type of overpaying you get every year on players who go to the Stanley Cup final. Oh, well, this guy's part of a winning culture. He can bring that here. And it's like, well, yeah, but he was also the third liner there, and he's the third liner here. And we just gave up a lot for him. So I didn't like that from Buffalo. For Carolina, they lost a lot on their blue line. When you look at Pesce and Shea, and those guys heading out the door, I do think they've recovered better than I thought. Just watching everyone leave and then seeing the first couple days of free agency, it's like, man, you guys aren't doing a fucking thing. Like, what's going on out here? That they are really committed to taking this step back this year. That concerns me a little bit. But then you look at the moves they make. That they bring in Walker, and now their top four on the blue line is still Slavin, Burns, Orlov, and Walker. Fine, yeah, like that. We just talked about the Boston Bruins. That matches, I think. And then they go out and they add Roslovic as a depth forward. They add Carrier to their fourth line, and I love this forward group so much. The high end talent is obviously very much there, and the depth that they have added with Roslovic and with Carrier is, I think, very, very strong. And that this blue line, while it took some big hits, is still pretty good. The issue is, and forever will be, Freddie Anderson. And I think when you have a defense that takes that step back, you need a goalie to be able to step up, and I just don't view him as that guy. And again, that is me saying he had a few very good performances in the postseason, but it's just those one or two backbreaking goals that he allows that are really, really devastating. And so to lose on your blue line while you have that, I don't want to say liability, because that is too much. Like, he is a good goalie, but when you don't have that bona fide number one can steal you games guy between the pipes, it becomes a bit of an issue, I think. And so I get a little bit concerned about that from a Carolina standpoint in terms of them being a real legitimate contender. And then you get to Columbus, as the Columbus Blue Jackets reunited, and it feels... Sean Monahan is reunited with Johnny Gaudreau for 5x5.5. Look, thrilled for Sean Monahan. Excellent dude. And at his peaks, a very good hockey player. and has had a post-Calgary resurgence whilst staying healthy. But that whilst staying healthy was exactly 1 year. Because he got hurt right around the trade deadline for Montreal a year ago, or else they would have moved him for the Winnipeg package that they got a year ago. And so to be making a 5-year bet on this cat is insanity to me. And I don't entirely get it, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't see where this makes them infinitely better now. It severely, I think, handicaps them a little bit later on, and you're kind of hoping for the little bit later on with Johnston and Fantilli and this core that you have set that now includes Caden Lindstrom, a really, really strong pick, and I think adds an element to this forward group they didn't necessarily have in a couple of years when he comes to this team, and I think he will fit nicely with Johnston and with Fantilli. But at that point, Gaudreau is going to be making more money than he is probably worth, and Monahan certainly will be making more money than he is worth, unless you can bury it on LTIR at that point. And I'm not wishing injury, I'm just telling you that kind of seems like the road this goes down. So if this is a bet to make Johnny Gaudreau happy, then fine. But this whole thing has always been, it's kind of like the Golden State Warriors, the two timelines thing, except they kind of suck at both. At least Golden State had the championships and all of that, and then they had some injuries and they tried to do this thing, and it didn't work. This one, they've had nothing, and now it looks like it will continue to be nothing. I don't think it fits out in Columbus. And look, maybe they're just committed to Johnston as a winger. Maybe they're committed to Monahan as a winger. And they keep Johnston over on the as a first liner and put him there and have Marchenko with Fantilli on a second line. But I don't get it. I think the blue line sucks, and I don't like the goaltending situation there either. So to make this Monahan move, it's a bit of a stretch. And again, this goes against a lot that I talked about when the Texas Rangers were winning the World Series last year, where it's like, you know what? You have a chance to get a good player, go get a good player. And hopefully you can kind of build around that with younger pieces, and then you can fill in with some veteran free agent moves. Well, so far that good player has been a good player, but pretty quiet. Been pretty quiet and hasn't been able to get them elevated. And now you are throwing bad money after bad to try to fix it. And it's not fixing. Out in Detroit, Vlad Tarasenko is the big move for them, and I think he fits this group well. Another good veteran scorer. They have now Tarasenko and Kane. The thing is, I think Tarasenko fit in really well on the Florida Panthers, and you could see, what Tarasenko is really good at is being kind of that details guy, but also a scoring threat on your third line. As it sits right now, he's probably a second liner on this team, and they have Tarasenko, Comfer, and Kane. To me, that it's a fine second line. It's a really good third line. And so it feels like that top line of DeBrincat, Larkin, and Raymond, that's really good. That's really, really, really good. And maybe you can split that up. I think DeBrincat and Larkin are the pair. So maybe it's Raymond down with Comfer, and that elevates that group a little bit more, or whatever you decide to do with that. But it still feels like they are a few forwards away from this being a really, really dangerous hockey team. The blue line, I don't love it. Seider is good. Seider's really good. But Sherrod, Petrie, there isn't enough there for me to feel like this is a team that can make that step. And they are trying really hard to make that step. But I think they're kind of trying in the wrong places. I feel like they need to address this blue line now, and they need a little bit more forward help. They do go and get a different goalie. They have 4 of them now in Cam Talbot. I want this team to come through, and they were so close last year, and maybe all they were was a Tarasenko away. And right now, all they are looking to do is make the postseason. And this roster, maybe they can. So maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh on the Detroit Red Wings. The defending Stanley Cup champion, Florida Panthers, haven't done a whole lot. And they've lost quite a bit, as Montour is on his way out. So that leaves a blue line with Forsling and Ekblad, Kulikov and Mikkola, and then a couple of guys who... they bring in Nate Schmidt as kind of a replacement. This is still a good hockey team, but this is now a hockey team that depth that you saw shine through in the Stanley Cup playoffs is now going to be tested a little bit more. And that's what happens when you have a team that goes on a run to the Stanley Cup final, is that some of your pieces kind of get picked off, and you have to figure out what was actually a part of the core and what wasn't. Montour, that was a big contract that he got in Seattle, and I don't think Florida was ever going to be able to match it, I guess. But this is still a very good team, and I think even without Montour, this is still, and Lomberg, and some of those guys, this is still a real, legitimate Stanley Cup threat, and a real legitimate team that can go back-to-back.
I'm so excited about how my business is growing, but along with it, my daily life has gotten crazy, like managing my employees and taking sales calls, all while driving my kids to school, soccer practice, and trying to keep my head on straight. I don't want the growth to stop, and I know we need to create a better online presence to do that, but we haven't written a blog, posted on social media, or touched our website in months. I'm not even sure I know how to move forward, so I just haven't. But then I found the Breezy Company, a monthly marketing service subscription that provides experienced and consistent teams with your most demanding marketing tasks through an efficient and streamlined process. It's so simple. I just chose the plan I needed. They matched me with one of their amazing Breezy team members. They onboarded me, and my company was off to the marketing races. I finally feel confident that I have a team who has my business's back and is working to promote what we do, drive leads to our pipeline, and make our brand look amazing. Now, back to work. The Breezy Company, scalable marketing teams.
If people are dieting now more than ever before, then why are nearly 1 in 3 American adults overweight? Dr. Gundry, who's helped thousands lose weight and feel younger and healthier than ever, says most people are not getting enough fat-burning MCTs from their food. MCTs are a special kind of compound that, instead of turning into fat when you consume it, turns into ketones, which is a chemical that breaks down the excess fat in your body. So, by getting more MCTs in your diet, you essentially flip a switch that puts your body in caloric bypass mode, which can flush out excess fat and calories. And he's created an easy way for you to activate caloric bypass right at home. It's called MCT Wellness. This powerful blend of fat-flushing MCT powders and antioxidant-rich polyphenols is designed to help you unlock your body's fat-burning, energy-producing potential. What's even better is that it's a delicious drink. I love how incredible it tastes. All you do is add a scoop to water, enjoy, and watch as you start feeling slimmer and more energized. So, if you want to experience a quick, easy, and effective way to melt pounds fast, go to CountryMD.com/energy and order right now to get up to 53% off your regular price order with a 90-day money-back guarantee. Again, that's GUNDRYMD.com/energy.
Save big at Menards. Discovering the perfect paint for your home has never been easier with Zinsser's Smart Coat. Plan smart with interactive tools at smartcoat.com. Buy smart in-store or online for home delivery. And paint smart with this advanced paint and primer in one. Save big on Zinsser's Smart Coat at Menards, America's #1 home improvement retailer for customer satisfaction, according to J.D. Power. For J.D. Power 2024 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Save big money at Menards.
The Montreal Canadiens hand out a big contract. It's to one of their own guys, as is Juraj Slafkovsky getting the big extension. So their big hope here is internal growth. That they're hoping that Slafkovsky takes the step that it kind of looked like he was trending towards last season, and that Caulfield and Suzuki stay awesome and maybe get a little bit more awesome. And then on the blue line, maybe Gouli takes another step. Maybe Hudson takes acclimates himself to National Hockey League play and looks really, really strong, which absolutely could happen. And then Montembeault and Primo end up stealing the show. I do think this is a Montreal team that could take a step this year, for sure. I love the Demidov pick. That has the potential to be a franchise changer. Like, Montreal has still been looking for that one last big piece. And I think Demidov can be very, very close to that. And he can be close enough to it that your complementary pieces, I guess, of Caulfield, Suzuki, and Slafkovsky can be good enough to take this team to that next level. So there's a real chance that Montreal is now kind of coming out of this rebuild and now building back up into a potential contender down the road for the Habs. The New Jersey Devils, one of the winners of the offseason. I had said last year that the Devils were a goalie away from being this team's a playoff team and one that can make a run. And they were a goalie and a defenseman away from being able to be Stanley Cup contenders. Well, they got their goalie and they got their defenseman in Pesce and in Jacob Markstrom. They didn't have to overpay for Jacob Markstrom. They give Pesce a big contract, but top four on your blue line of Siegenthaler, Hamilton, Hughes, and Pesce is just gross. When you pair it with Palat, Heischer, Bratt, Meyer, Hughes, Mercer, they bring in Tatar as a depth option. Holla is someone who I've liked for a long time. Like, this is a very, very good hockey team. And they had another really good piece in the draft in Salayev, the defenseman, who I think is really, really interesting. And I admittedly didn't think he would be there at 10. I kind of thought that defensive cluster would happen earlier in the draft, but now you get one of the better defensemen coming back to them at 10 to kind of help continue to round this system out or give them a trade chip down the road. This is a really, really good hockey team. And the New Jersey Devils this offseason have turned themselves into Stanley Cup contenders. Legitimate Stanley Cup contenders here with one very good offseason. The New York Islanders have been doing what the New York Islanders do, and that is stay patient. They make a small move in bringing Anthony Duclair. He will be a top 6 forward for this team, and someone who brings a scoring touch that they don't necessarily have a ton of. This is still an hockey team. It's not one that impresses me a whole lot. I think the most intriguing thing about them right now, honestly, is getting Cole Eiserman at 20. He was someone who rode that roller coaster that a prospect rides, and then he was starting to really drop. And like we've talked about how this is an Islanders team that doesn't really have a ton of scoring pop. If this hits, this is a kid who has a ton of scoring pop and could be a really interesting factor for them down the road, and just something they don't really have a lot of. But they're like, I'm bored of them, but they're a good hockey team, right? Like, I like Horvat. Barzell is really, really fun. Palmieri's fine. Pajot exists. Dodson's really good on the blue line. Sorokin is fantastic between the pipes. Like, they're not going to excite you, and then you're gonna look up after the trade deadline. It's like, well, fucking Islanders, man. Here they go again. The New York Rangers. This was, to me anyway, a bit under the radar because it happened kind of after the frenzy, but while we were still doing other frenzy things. It was just it felt like it came in under the radar. And now looking at it, I love the Riley Smith move. I think this is maybe the most underrated move of free agency so far. What he can bring now in really rounding out that top 6 and not putting a ton of pressure on Kakko and allowing him to kind of keep developing in his third line role, and then bringing in Carrick as a fourth line center, it rounds out this forward group so incredibly well. I like this group so much, and we'll see what's going on. Like, there's a lot of drama around Trouba, but obviously you have Fox, one of the best defensemen in the league. You have Shesterkin at his best. He's the best goalie in the National Hockey League. This is a legitimate Stanley Cup contender, and that Riley Smith move, I think, needs to be taken really, really seriously by everyone around the National Hockey League. The Ottawa Senators haven't made moves to be taken seriously. They got absolutely steamrolled in the Jacob Chychrun trade. They did not get close to appropriate value back for Jacob Chychrun, and that is, I think, a substantial loss for a team that couldn't afford to lose that amount of talent for nothing, and almost did anyway. Like, they get Jensen back, who can probably play with Shabbat on a second pairing. Sanderson and Zub as a first is fine. I still think there's quite a bit there in Bernard Docker. They do make a big move in getting Allmark, and goaltending has been the thing that they've needed help with for quite a while, but this still isn't a forward group that screams playoffs to me. Like, I still think Detroit is ahead of them in terms of that sort of a rebuild. They bring in Perron for veteran whatever the fuck, and he can score, but I feel like overall, in and out, they've lost more than they've gained, and they certainly weren't in that position. And the Akimchuk pick is going to be really looked at over the next 10, 15 years because there are some very talented defensemen who were drafted after him who were projected to be drafted ahead of him. So we'll see how the Calgary Hitmen defenseman ends up developing. The Philadelphia Flyers, their big move is Michkov is coming stateside. And if he is as excellent as everyone anticipates he will be, then this could be a bit of a home run and kind of the difference-making guy that they have needed for so very long. Konechny, Couturier, kind of on their last legs. Tippett has always kind of just been around it, but maybe not all the way there to get that national recognition. The blue line is fine. I love the Drysdale acquisition for them last season. And then you're hoping that one of the goalies hit, which is the perpetual want out in Philadelphia. But yeah, Michkov, like, hey, no pressure, kid. I know these are your first 8 seconds in North America. Full time as someone who now lives here. But if you could just save this heritage franchise, that'd be sweet. The Pittsburgh Penguins are up next, and they are a team that I get very frustrated with because they haven't done a gosh darn thing. And now the talk is, well, Sidney Crosby's coming back. It's like, you owe it to that guy to make this team as good as possible. And I get that's what they are trying to do. But they aren't doing well at it. They bring in Beauvillier, they bring in Hayes. Those are a couple of depth options. This blue line is still atrocious. We'll see if they can get the 8th bounce back from Letang or Carlson. Crosby is still playing at such a high level, but there's just not nearly enough around him to help it out. And then it feels like they're getting ready for 82 games of a goaltending controversy out there again, out in Pittsburgh. Moving on to the Tampa Bay Lightning. They have had one of the more noteworthy off seasons in not a great way, as Steven Stamkos leaves in not great fashion. Very frustrated with the organization. He's off in Nashville. The Lightning replace him with Jake Gensel, who is really good. And I don't want any part of this to kind of overshadow what a good hockey player Jake Gensel is. But this isn't just some 34-year-old scrub you're replacing. This is a guy who's hit 40 in 2 of the last 3 seasons. And emotional leader, all of those things. And now, leadership-wise, this team is just overflowing. Right? Hedman, Kucherov, Point, all those guys have been to so many big games and all of that. And they have one of the best goalies in the world still in Vasilevsky. But to lose Sergachev, to lose Stamkos, and to replace them with Gensel and McDonough, it keeps you maybe competitive longer, but I think it shrinks, if not closes, the Stanley Cup championship winning window, unless there's some step up here from someone that I am just absolutely not seeing. So again, this is still a good team, but this is not a title contending team, and there isn't a direct path to that if you are the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Toronto Maple Leafs are up next. Finally, some coverage on the Leafs. The big move hasn't been made yet, as there's been a lot of discussion about Mitch Marner. Sounds like he's starting the season anyway as a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs. We will see as it winds down, as he approaches his free agency. But they went out and they addressed the blue line with Tanev and with OEL. And this is another one where it feels like something different should be made. And I'm falling for it again, but on paper, this team is fantastic. Nyes was great last season, and getting another full year of National Hockey League play under his belt is going to be good. McMahon seems like there's something there. Put him with Tavares and Nylander, then Holmberg, Domi, and Yarncroc on a third line, and then your fourth line is whoever. Dewar, Camp, Reeves. You can replace those guys in a heartbeat. But bringing in Tanev to play with Riley on the blue line is great. OEL, maybe. And again, the Tanev one, the term, not what I would want to do. OEL, not a contract I want to do. But again, better than what they had, makes them a better hockey team for this year. They need Liljegren to step up now. It has been long enough. He needs to be a guy who isn't just, maybe. Well, you can't put him in this trade package. Well, you can't put him in that trade package. Well, you can't put him in this one. Well, now you're not going to be able, soon anyway, you're not going to be able to put him in them because no one is going to want him. So they are going to need to step it up. And then the obvious is Wall needs to be really good for them. But again, this is a team, this is a roster where the upper bound limit is a Stanley Cup champion. The odds of that happening are slim, but this is a team that is within the realm of possibility, is them hoisting the shiny thing when this all is said and done. And now we close this out with a bit of a whimper with the Washington Capitals, and they are different, but different isn't always better. As they go out and acquire Pierre-Luc Dubois and Andrew Mangiapane, the entire goal is to get Alex Ovechkin to 1 billion goals and help him set the goal scoring record. Pierre-Luc Dubois is not a player I would want on my team ever. I thought his effort and his play all season long, and then specifically in the playoffs, was atrocious, and he was a net negative for the LA Kings, and we'll do the LA Kings breakdown in part 2 of the podcast today when we look at the Western Conference, but they are better for not having him. And That's not what I would want to be bringing onto my team when the tightrope that I'm walking to try to get in the playoffs is oh so thin. And Andrew Mangiapane at 5.8, 5.7, either way, 5 point something, is not the player that I think Washington thinks they are getting. He scored 30 goals once, and that was great. He's had a nose for the net in his entire career, but it just seems to kind of be gone now. And the only time he was really effective last year in Calgary was when he was with Backlund and Coleman, and everyone was effective with Backlund and Coleman last year. To me, Mangiapane is a fine scoring third-line player who is good with puck retrieval and can help out in your own end, but when you're relying on him as a second-line forward, it's just not going to be good enough, which I think will be the theme for the Washington Capitals this season. So there you go. About 25 minutes running through the entire NHL Eastern Conference. Thank you all so much for tuning in today. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure if you're watching, you like it. If you're listening, you review it. And I'll talk to you guys later. Follow me on social media at Primetime Klein. Part 2 coming up.
It's time to get the world talking about Black-led brands. We all have our favorites, our ride or dies, and ones we can count on to help us live our best lives. But we can't keep them all to ourselves. So if you're feeling like a Black Opal beauty, tell somebody. If the lip bar gives you a lip for every drip, let them know. And if your hair is doing the do, shout that out too, because one shout out leads to another, and almost half of Black-led brands are discovered by word of mouth. Join Walmart in shouting out your favorite Black-led products, creating a new world of choices at walmart.com/blackandunlimited.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Baker's, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Baker's worth it every time. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.